So this practice test literally is almost identical to a version of the test tomorrow. Tomorrow's test is multiple choice. I went through that test and all I did was rewrite the question but change one number or maybe two, but the math process is all the same. So there's three questions, numbers 1 through 3, where they ask you to write an equation in point-slope form. Okay, so we need to remember what point-slope form is. Let me zoom in on the first one here. Point-slope form is y minus y1 equals m parenthesis x minus x1. So if we look at that first one, they do give us an x value and a y value, and they do give us an m value. So all we need to do is plug it into point-slope form. And the best way to do that is to rewrite point-slope form, but with the blank spots. So let's write y minus blank spot equals blank spot parenthesis x minus blank spot, close parenthesis. And then plug in your y1 value, which happens to be 3, your m value, which happens to be negative 4/5, and your x1 value, which happens to be negative 7. Change the minus minus to plus plus, and you are done. There's your equation in point-slope form. Easy, no math involved, right? Number 2. We also want this one in point-slope form, so let's again write point-slope form, but with blank spots. We're going to have y minus y1 equals m parenthesis x minus x1. And you simply plug in your x, your y, and your m. The m is always in front of x, that's negative 1/2 right in front of x, in front of the parentheses. The x value is positive 2, so you put the x value in the parentheses with the x, and the y value is negative 2, you put the y value over there in front of the y minus. And again, the minus minus changes to plus plus, and that's it. That's your answer. On your multiple choice, you'll see y plus 2 equals negative 1/2 parenthesis x minus 2. Moving on. Last one here. Point-slope form with blank spots. Y minus y1 equals m parenthesis x minus x1. So our x1, y1 are right there. Our m, they give it to us as 0. So the m is 0. The x value is negative 4. The y value is negative 5. And of course the minus minus changes to plus plus on both of those. And this is the point-slope form equation. But if you see this on the test, they might not even write it with the 0, because anything times 0 is 0, right? So they might not even write any of this over here. They might just write it as y plus 5 equals 0, maybe, right? Or they could also write it as y equals negative 5. But that would be slope-intercept. That wouldn't be point-slope. Or who knows, maybe they write it like this. Anyway, let's move on. The next section of the test says write each equation in standard form. And we all need to know standard form is capital AX plus capital BY equals capital C. You do not want decimals or fractions. So because we don't want fractions, it's a great idea to get rid of the fraction first, right? For standard form, get rid of decimals or fractions. So I want to get rid of that 5/2 by doing what? Multiplying everything by 2. Thank you. This times 2, that times 2, the fraction times 2. But do not multiply the x by 2 or the 4 by 2. Because you technically already multiplied these guys by 2 by multiplying this outside term by 2. Because we all know that distributive property has to happen, which means that whatever you do to this outside term, it's like if you did do it to the inside terms. So do not multiply this again by 2. So anyways, what do we have? We have a new equation that reads 2y minus 6 equals, the 2's canceled. We have 5 left over. We still have the parentheses x plus 4. And like we said, you have to distribute. So that 5 needs to get distributed. 5 times x is 5x. 5 times 4 is 20. Bring down the equal sign. Bring down everything. Now, what are we trying to write it again in? Slope-intercept or standard? Standard. So we want the x's and the y's to the left. So let's subtract 5x. Subtract 5x. And I'm going to rewrite it so we don't get confused. We have a negative 5x plus 2y minus 6 equals 20. 20 is the only thing left on the right side. Add 6 to both sides. Plus 6, and we will have negative 5x plus 2y equals 26. Now, if you write this answer, if you bubble that answer in, if you see that answer and you bubble it in, you're probably going to get it wrong, because there's going to be another answer that has the a value as a positive value. So let's change this negative 5 to a positive 5 by multiplying everything by negative 1. So the answer you will see on the test will be a positive 5x, a negative 2y, and a negative 26. And that will be the answer that you see on the test. Again, on standard form, we have to make that a value positive. Moving on to number 5, no fractions, no decimals. Okay, I'm going back to this one because that was a great question. If you're doing all this math and you end up with a positive a value, that's it, you're done. You don't have to change all the signs. The only time we change signs is if you have an a value that's negative, change it to positive. Why? Because that's how they do it on the test. All right. Over here, again, standard form, you don't want fractions, you don't want decimals. Are there any fractions or decimals right there? No. So it's ready to go. All you have to do is get rid of the parentheses, because standard form does not have parentheses. So we get rid of the parentheses by distributing. 3 times x is 3x. 3 times negative 4 is negative 12. And we could rewrite everything, bring down the equal, the 13, the minus, the y. And again, we want x's and y's on the left side and the number on the right side. Now, it doesn't matter which one you move first, or you could actually move both at the same time. On number 4, I only moved one at a time. Right here, I'm going to move both. See if you guys could keep up with me. I want to get rid of this minus 3x. I want to get rid of the 3x by doing a minus 3x. And what I do to one side, I do to the other, minus 3x. But I'm not going to be able to actually combine the y minus 3x. Those are not like terms. I'm just going to rewrite it. And I'm also going to move the minus 13 to the other side by doing plus 13. So right here, I'm doing 2 steps in one, just for the sake of time. So the minus 13 and the positive 13, that really did cancel out. On the right side, the 3x and the minus 3x, it really did cancel out. So what do I have left? Well, on the left side, I have y take away 3x, which I cannot do. I'm just going to rewrite it. So let me rewrite it with the negative 3x first, since you want your ax before your by. So negative 3x plus y equals, and negative 12 plus 13, that is a positive 1. And once again, we have an a value that's negative. We don't want an a value that's negative, so what's our final answer going to be? Instead of negative 3x plus y equals 1, what's our final equation going to be? Positive 3x minus y equals negative 1. Perfect. There you go. That's your answer for number 5. Moving on to number 6. Again, no fractions, no decimals. There's no fractions, no decimals, right? And I'm telling you, on the test, these are almost identical, right? So you're only going to see a fraction on one of them. The other two are not going to have fractions or decimals. Really easy. Standard form, ax plus by equals c. There are no parentheses. So let's get rid of those parentheses. And when you have a minus sign in front of the parenthesis, remember, you're going to be distributing that minus sign. So negative, it's like a negative 1. Negative 1 times x, that's negative x. Negative 1 times negative 7, that is positive 7. We have the equal sign. We have y minus 14 on the left side. And now let's get the x to the left side and that minus 14 to the right side. Do you guys want to do one step at a time or two at the same time? Two at the same time. Okay, so let's move that negative x to the left side by making it a positive x. Positive x. And let me move that minus 14 to the other side by going plus 14 and plus 14. So what do I have left? On the left side, I have y plus x, but I'm going to write it as x plus y. The equal sign comes down, and 7 plus 14 is 21. And we don't have to change any signs. The a value is already positive, and we're done with writing equations in a standard form. Okay, so the next section, number 7 through 13, this is the biggest section of the test. It says write an equation of the line in slope-intercept form. So let me zoom in on that. We need to know that when they say slope-intercept, they're talking about y equals mx plus b. So we need to make all of these equations look like y equals mx plus b. Not point slope. I mean, you could use point slope, but y equals mx plus b. Now, number 7, they give us 2 points, x, y, x, y. And the only thing we could do with 2 points is find the slope using the slope formula. Slope formula is m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And when you use this formula, use the division and the subtractions first, and then plug in your y2 value. By the way, this was your first point, so you put 1, 1. This is your second point, so you put 2, 2. So the y2 value is 0, the y1 value is negative 3, the x2 value is 6, and the x1 value is negative 6. The minus minus changed to plus plus. So our new slope is 3 over 12. Now, if you could reduce, reduce. If you could divide, divide. So what is 3 divided by 12, or what's the fraction 3/12 reduced down to? M equals 1/4. All right, perfect. So we have half of what we need. Now, I don't want to confuse you guys. If you're really comfortable with slope-intercept form, if you're comfortable with y equals mx plus b, and they're asking for the equation in y equals mx plus b, all you need is a b value, right? So all you have to do is write down y equals mx plus b and plug in an x value right there, a y value right there, and the m value that you just found right there. You could do that. Or you could use a point and the slope to write it in point slope form and then manipulate it to make it look like y equals mx plus b. So it's totally up to you. Maybe I'll do this one just with y equals mx plus b, and the next one maybe I'll do it with point slope form. So anyways, if I did just use y equals mx plus b, my y value is going to be negative 3. So let's all start by doing that. Negative 3 equals, my m value I found out was 1/4. So let's write down 1/4 right here, times our x value. And as you can see, the x value that we're using, because we use this y value, we're going to have to use this x value of negative 6. So multiply it by negative 6. And then plus b at the very end. And when you multiply a number times a fraction, that's not difficult at all. All you have to do is put that number over 1 so it'll look like a fraction, and then multiply the top with the top and the bottom with the bottom. So the 6 with the negative 1 and the 1 times the 4. So let's do that, and we get a new fraction that says negative 6 over 4, and we still have the plus b, we still have the equal sign and the negative 3. Now, if you're confused with this fraction, you could get rid of it by multiplying everything by the denominator 4. So let's multiply everything by 4. This negative 3 times 4, the fraction times 4, and even the b times 4. So when you do multiply everything by 4, you're going to end up with negative 12 equals, the 4's cancel, and you end up with a negative 6 right there, and then plus b times 4 is 4b. And now we need to get rid of everything except for b. You want to isolate b. You want to solve for b. So I'm going to get rid of that minus 6 by going plus 6. What you do to one side, you do to the other, plus 6. And you'll end up with a negative 6 equals 4b. I'm running out of space here. Let me move it up here. So we said negative 12 plus 6, that's negative 6 equals 4b. So for my final step, what do I do for my final step here? Anybody? How do I get rid of that 4 in front of the b? Divide by 4, divide by 4. So b equals negative 6 over 4. But of course, you could reduce that by 2, and it'll become negative 3 over 2. That's your b value. Okay? So your b value is negative 3 over 2. And now that you know your m and your b, now that you know these two things, now you can write your equation in y equals mx plus b form. Don't say that. You're not going to fail this quiz because, well, first of all, it's not a quiz, it's a test. Yeah, 100 points. Oh, okay. Well, how about this? You want to feel a little better? Check this out. When you find, guys, when you find the slope, you know how to find the slope, right? Yeah. When you find the slope, there's going to be multiple choice answers. And I think that on most of them, if you know y equals mx plus b, you're going to have 4 different equations like this, right? Yeah. And I think only one of them have that slope. or on some of them, only 2 of them have that slope. So you're gonna be able to eliminate 2 or maybe all the questions and get the right answer just by knowing your slope. Okay, so it's not that bad. Like this is a little crazy because if you make one little mistake in here, it messes it all up. But on the multiple choice, you're gonna have 4 answers already. And when you find the first step, when you find the slope, you're gonna be able to look at the slope and you'll be able to eliminate some of them already. Okay, so it really does become easier. Now, this was just with y equals mx plus b. On this one, let's see. Again, let's start with slope. The slope formula is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And when you use it, do the division and the subtractions first. You have your x value, your y value, your x value, your y value. This is your first point. This is your second point. So I'm going to plug in 5 minus 3 over 7 minus 0. I apologize for going fast. I just want to get as many questions on this video as possible. When you do 5 take away 3, you end up with a positive 2. When you do 7 take away 0, you end up with a 7. So the slope, ladies and gentlemen, is 2/7. You can't reduce it, can't divide. That's your slope. We need a b value. Now, the b value is the y-intercept value. Now, I'm telling you this, on one of the questions on the test, they're indirectly going to give you the b value. Isn't this coordinate 0, 3? Like, think about that coordinate on a graph. 0 on the x, 3 on the y, that is the y-intercept. That is the b value, right? 0, 3 is right there. So the b value is really just 3. So, I mean, that one's easy. You didn't even have to use point slope. I mean, that's the answer, right? Y equals mx plus b. 2 over 7. X plus b is plus 3. That's your answer in slope-intercept form. Moving on to number 9. Number 9 is a little more interesting. It's even easier than the previous ones. Why? Because they straight up give you the slope. They give you the m value. The m value is -5. What else do they give you? A point, x value and a y value. So if you want, you could use y equals mx plus b, and you could plug in your x right there, your m right here, and you could plug in your y of 3 right there, and you could solve for b. We did that last time. You could do it again. Or you could use point slope form. Let me use point slope form this time since we've been using y equals mx plus b on the previous 2. So right here we have y minus y1 equals m parenthesis x minus x1. And use blank spots. Y minus blank equals blank parenthesis x minus blank. And let's plug in our y1 value of 3, our m value of -5, our x value of -7. Change the minus minus to plus plus. And this is an equation in point slope form, but you could change it to slope intercept just by distributing the -5. -5 times x, -5x, -5 times 7 is -35. And we will have y minus 3 on this side. So all I need to do now is get that y by itself. What do I do to get rid of that -3? Plus 3. That's right, plus 3. Both sides. Thank you for participating. No problem. You're the best, Mr. Salgado. All right, thanks. So we have y equals -5x minus 32. Boom. So it's up to you. If you feel really comfortable with point slope and they give you a point and they give you a slope, plug it into point slope and then change it to y equals mx plus b. But if you're really comfortable with the slope intercept form y equals mx plus b, you could plug in the x value, the y value, and the m into y equals mx plus b to solve for b. So instead of y, you could write 3, right? Here's y. There's y, it's 3. Let's put equals. So let's write down equals m. M happens to be -5 times x. X happens to be -7. So we're going to multiply -5 times -7 and plus b at the very end, plus b. So if we work this out, we're going to have a 3 equals 35 plus b. So solving for b, you would subtract 35, and 3 take away 35 is 32, and that's the b value. So we found the b value without using point slope form, and as you can see, once you know the m and the b, you could write in y equals mx plus b form. So y equals negative 5x minus 32. That's exactly what we got the other way. So it's really totally up to you which way you want to tackle this problem. Using point slope is great, but if you don't like using point slope, you could stick to slope intercept. So Caden, what do you think? Sticking to slope intercept, or do you want to start using point slope? Slope intercept. Okay, so you just want to use y equals mx plus b. Sure. So here's y equals mx plus b. What do they give us? They give us an x value, a y value, and also an m value. So let's plug in, instead of y, I'm going to put a 3, equals, instead of m, I'm going to put 1/2. And then times x, but instead of x, I'm going to put 8. And then plus b. And when I multiply 1/2 times 8, that is 4. We have a 3, we have a plus b, and we need to get rid of that 4 by subtracting 4 and subtracting 4. So we know that b equals negative 1. b equals negative 1. And once you know your m and you know your b, now you could write your equation in slope-intercept form. So that was pretty easy, actually. Just plugging everything into y equals mx plus b and solving for b. So let's do that. Let's now write our equation. Y equals m, which was 1/2 x, plus b, that means minus 1 because the b value is negative 1. There's my equation in slope-intercept form. So this is the biggest part of the test, guys. If you want to use point slope, go for it. If you just want to stick with y equals mx plus b, go for it. And of course, we have these easy ones. These are like free points. Check it out. Number 11. We want to write this equation in slope-intercept form. If it's visual, it's easy. All you have to do is identify your rise over run and identify your y-intercept, and you're ready to rock, right? So what is my slope from here? How much do you rise to get to the next point? You don't have to use this one and this one. You could just go to the next nice point, which would be right here. So you could go up 2 over 1. That means that your slope is 2 over 1. Now, if you did use both points that they give you, you'd go up 1, 2, 3, 4. The rise is 4. The run is 2. So if you did use that, up 4 over 2, you could reduce it or divide, and you'll get 2 as your slope. The b value happens to be right here at this location. That location is negative 3. It crosses the y at negative 3. So your y equals mx plus b equation for number 11 is y equals 2x, put the x in black there, minus 3, the b value. Y equals mx plus b. Number 12, the b value is negative 1. The slope value is, you're going down 2 over 2, all right? So let's write this stuff down. The m value is down 2, that means negative 2 over 2, which means the m value is negative 1. And the b value is also negative 1. So your slope-intercept form equation, y equals mx plus b, which is a minus 1. That's your slope-intercept form equation for that one. So the ones with graphs are really easy to do. Just identify your m, identify your b, and you're ready to go. This one's super easy. They give you the m value. They give you the b value just by looking where it crosses, and you're done. Y equals, the slope is negative 1, x, and the b value is also negative 1. Wait, is that the same problem?
Yeah. Same answer.
Same answer? Wait, well then it must be the same problem, right?
No, well, yeah,
It is. It's just given to you with different information, but it's the same exact thing though. Anyway, that's about it for the first half. Let's flip the paper over. Now, I do realize that this test is long, and the other algebra teachers also agreed with that, so we are going to skip numbers 14, 15. Okay, all you had to do there was plug in and see if it was true or if it was false, but that kind of takes a lot of time. So let's just jump to 16 through 17. Change the following point slope form equations into slope intercept form. So we want it to look like y equals mx plus b. So on these guys, it's okay to have fractions. As a matter of fact, the slope, you want it to be rise over run. So, but you don't want parentheses, and you want y by itself. So let's get rid of the parentheses by distributing the 5/2. Or if you wanted to, you could multiply everything by 2, but then you'd have to get y by itself. So it's up to you if you want to get rid of the fraction or distribute the fraction. maybe I'll get rid of it on one and distribute on the other. So I'm going to distribute right here. 5 halves times x, that is 5 halves x. 5 halves times 6. Put the 6 over 1 and then multiply the 5 times 6 and the 2 times 1. So 5 times 6 and 2 times 1, you'll get 30 over 2. So that's why distributing a fraction is not that bad, especially when you end up with something nice right here. 30 over 2, what's 30 divided by 2? 15, right? So we have plus 15, we have a 5 halves x, and we have the equal sign and a y minus 3 on the left side. So the only other thing I need to do is get rid of that minus 3 by going plus 3 and plus 3, and you will have y equals 5 halves x plus 18. And that is your slope-intercept form equation. Number 17, we don't even have a fraction here, so all we have to do is distribute and then get the y by itself. So negative 9 times x, negative 9x, negative 9 times 1 is negative 9. Bring down the equal sign, and we do have y plus 1 left over on this side. Let's get rid of that plus 1 by subtracting 1 and subtracting 1. So our final slope-intercept form equation is y equals negative 9x minus 10. Number 18. 18, 19, and 20 are graphing inequalities. This is the furthest back section that we did. So you definitely need a refresher right here. Everybody, please pay attention. You want a graph? Let's use y equals mx plus b. But to get y by itself, you'd have to divide by 2, divide by 2, divide by 2. Then you'll have y. You do not flip the inequality. You keep it because you didn't divide by a negative 2. It's a positive 2 that you divided by. The only time this changes is when you multiply or divide by a negative. So what do I have for my slope? I have 3 over 2. You can't really reduce it or divide it. So let's leave it. Rise 3, run 2. And the b value happens to be minus 1. And that's really easy to graph. As a refresher, remember, how do you graph this? Well, it crosses the y-axis at negative 1. The b value is negative 1. Let's put a dot at negative 1. From that point, I'm going to rise how much? Or am I going to drop? Rise how much? 1, 2, 3. And run how much? And you always run to the right. Okay? So that's 3 over 2. Here's my dot. Let's connect the dots. Now the question is, when I connect these dots, am I going to use a solid line or a dotted line? Dotted, right? Why? Because there's no solid line underneath the inequality. If there's no solid line underneath the inequality, it cannot be a solid line. So I'm just going to put some dots. And now I need a shade, guys. I either shade in above this blue dotted line or below this blue dotted line. It's really easy. This is a greater than symbol with the y. So your y values have to be greater than the actual line. So here's the line. Y is greater is above. So we're going to shade in above. Now, of course, the original method I taught you of shading would be to test the point 0, 0. And if you did put a 0 for x and a 0 for y, again, 0 for x, 0 for y, you'd have 0 is greater than 0 minus 1. 0 is greater than negative 1, so it does work, so you would shade in that side. But with the greater than, you could shade in the top. With the less than, you could shade in the bottom if y is by itself. So on number 19, let's get y by itself. What do I get rid of first to get y by itself?
3x.
Get rid of the 3x by subtracting 3x. It's going to cancel. What you do to one side, you do to the other. You do not change that inequality symbol. Let's just rewrite everything. 3y is greater than or equal to negative 3x plus 9. For my final step, I'm going to divide everything by 3. Do I change the inequality symbol? Or do I keep it? Y, do I keep it? Change it. Keep it. You didn't divide by negative 3, divide by a positive. The m value is going to be negative 1 with an x, and 9 divided by 3, that is positive 3. So it crosses at positive 3, and from that point, you're going to go down 1 over 1. So down 1 over 1, because it's negative, you're going down instead of up. Don't think, oh, because my point's up here, I have to go down. That's not the case. It's because your slope is negative that you actually go down. If it were positive, you'd go up. So you're going down 1, always run to the right. So down 1 over 1, down 1 over 1. That way you could get these coordinates. And then you have to determine if it's going to be a solid line or a dotted line. What do you guys say? Solid, absolutely. Okay, so let's do a solid line. Make sure that you identify the solid line. And then we're either going to shade above the y value, above this line, or below this line. What do you guys say? Look at this symbol. What does it say? That's greater than. Where's greater than? Above or below? Above. So let's shade in above. So shade in up here. If you were to test the point 0, 0, it would not work. Check it out. 0 for x, 0 for y. 0 is greater than or equal to 0 plus 3. Is 0 greater than 3? No. So 0, 0 does not work. That means that over here everything must work. Down here nothing works. Okay, so I would just go with the greater than's above the line, less than's below the line. That only works if y is by itself. So number 20, I need to get y by itself. I'm going to go plus x to get y by itself. Plus x, I have 3y is less than x minus 9. My final step would be to divide by 3, divide by 3, divide by 3. Of course, there's an invisible 1 in front of the x. My inequality will be y is less than 1/3 x minus 3. So that's our inequality. I need to graph it. It crosses the y-axis at -3. Now, from this point, I need to rise and run according to my slope. If it's positive, you go up. If it's negative, you go down. So it is up 1 because it's positive 1, and run to the right 3. 1, 2, 3. Let's put a dot right there. Now the question is, do I do a solid line or a dotted line? Dotted, okay. And then do I shade above or below this blue dotted line? What does this say? Less than. Y is less than. Less than is below. Greater than is above. So less than is below the line. So let's shade in below the line. Okay? That easy, guys. We did 18 questions. There will be 18 questions on the test. Please study this.